This podcast has been brought to you by Voyager's World. We are building the most amazing hospitality network. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.
There was a time when I thought sitting in the middle of nowhere having a cup of coffee might be something outside of my normal day-to-day existence. Lately, it seems like every day. Most days it's hard enough to remember the day, let alone the number of the month. My day starts with the rising of the sun and ends when it sets in front of me. Everything in my life used to be dictated for some other reason, for some means that always seemed unattainable. My life at this moment has absolute meaning and reason. The big question is what's next? I just quoted Jeremy Schaefer, and he's my friend here on this podcast. And welcome very much, Jeremy. We are very happy to have you. And I would like you to spend 1 minute telling our viewers a little bit about you, because they don't know you yet.
Okay. Jeremy Schaefer. I I've as far as running and everything is concerned, I've been a runner and a cyclist and very active for a long time. I primarily got into it because well, I suffered with depression and bipolar disorder for a long period in my life and used exercise and physical fitness. Basically, it made me feel better. So, and it was free, and I didn't have to go through all sorts of means as far as financially for doctors and medication, and it was something I could do on my own. So, I just went with it because it made me feel better, and basically, it's led up to where I am today and the accomplishments that I've made today.
Yeah. I decided to open the podcast with that quote from you because when you were doing your run across America, I was paying attention to your posts and your photos and things like that, and it came across through the entire thing uh, that you are exposing it a lot. It shows some vulnerability on your writing. It was quite beautiful to read. It was also quite candid. Sometimes you told about your problems, about your challenges, and when people do that, I believe there is an incredible value in it, because those that are reading will see that you are a real human being. You're not like a super athlete, or you're not like a celebrity that we only see the good news about it.
Mm-hmm.
They could
Yeah.
see that you are a real guy, and you
Mm-hmm.
are showing your vulnerable side. So when you do that, people will naturally think, well, if he can do that, then I can do it. If he has that problem and I have the problem, then I can do the same. I can overcome the same way. So I thought you were incredibly inspiring
Thank you.
for that, and I appreciated every opportunity that we had to talk.
Yeah.
If there were not many, but you are back in Vermont, right?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because when you read that quote, it puts me
Hmm.
in a place of where I used to be, and
Hmm.
now I feel like I'm absolutely like a domestic animal in some respects because I'm
Yeah.
got a full-time job and paying bills, and I have a
Uh,
fiance and all that stuff.
uh,
So, I'm still trying to
uh-huh.
find. I know there's that, in my in the way I look at it is that we all kind of have this wild animal within
Mhm.
us that wants to kind of roam and be free and do that. And I mean,
Uh-huh.
I have that in me still, but
Uh-huh.
a lot lately it's been finding the balance between those two worlds, domestic life and
Sure.
that urge, to still.
Sure. I believe that the this paradox of wanting adventure and wanting to be out there, and the need to also be normal and have a family and develop other things is something that you'll never resolve. You only manage.
Yep.
You only manage to a reasonable extent. And each person will find their own way to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but let's dig a little bit deeper into this. You ran from where to where?
I ran from South Carolina, Hunting Island, South Carolina, to San Diego, California was the end destination.
Uh-huh. That was 2014, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Um, I I really like to keep in touch and talk to other people that did this kind of thing because I noticed that are not true, that are similar. The motivations and the even the ways, the methods that they use were so unique, and the way they think about it is unique.
Hmm.
Even myself, when I look at the way that I did my first transcon and the second, they are completely different. It's
Yeah.
like two different persons did that.
Hmm.
Um, and when you are doing, uh, how what was your motivation before doing it, and did that motivation change? Did you end with the same idea that you began it?
It was absolutely two different things. From what I started with to what I ended with, I mean, it was vastly different perceptions of, I mean, just everything. What I initially thought I could do was based a lot on my ego. Nobody believed I could do it.
Uh-huh.
So initially, that for me had always been a catalyst of sorts, because everybody doubt was one of my biggest things. It's like you can doubt me and I'll prove to you that I can do it. So that was one of the things that initially put me into it. Secondly, it was just a matter of like I was just thinking in my head that I had this plan of how many miles per day, everything. And I just had it all figured out. I remember having a book of individually printed out maps for 50-mile days of every section that I'd run. And on the first day, I left it in the van because I knew it do me no good at that point in time. Like that, this is absolute, this is bullshit because I realized that at that point in time,
Uh-huh.
why would I want to carry around 20 pounds of? And I remember having a conversation with you when I first loaded my stroller up
Uh-huh.
and having three dry bags and all
Uh-huh.
this extra gear. And anyway,
Uh-huh.
you know, uh, that that was a bit of the mental perspective, but at the end of it all, the difference in my own head was incredible as far as humanity, digging deep within myself to find out fears that needed to be overcome. And to me, it was a matter of how willing you were able to go into fears and to overcome those fears and to find this absolute beautiful thing beyond that, which was this amazing growth that would happen. The hardest part for me was coming back from this experience of growth and change and coming back to my normal life. And that's a whole other story. But it took me probably a year of being depressed because I had just experienced all that. And
No, do you mean about a year of being depressed after the run?
after the run, yep,
Mm.
coming back from all that. First of all, it took me a while to get used to sleeping in my own bed, or everything like that, and
Uh-huh.
and then you live your 5 minutes of fame or whatever, where people are asking you about things and
Yeah.
people beeping their horns and whatever. And in honesty, I would never been the type of person that um, thrives on. I was better. I felt better when I finally slipped back into you know the shadows and not didn't have that light upon me. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, your two runs were different. If I ran again, it would probably be different. But at the same time, I didn't plan to have so many people follow me. And
Yeah.
so it kind of grew into what it was, regardless of what I would have expected it to be.
Yeah, when I say that they were different, it has more than one meaning. They were different on the way they look, on the way that are organized. In strategy, they were different. The first time was with a stroller. The second time, I used a small backpack. Um, but it's counterintuitive because the second time I ran less and I walked longer. So I actually did a better mileage, average mileage by running less,
Okay. Yep.
and I end up finishing faster. But the biggest difference is not that. The biggest difference is that on the first one, in my mind, it was a run. It was like, okay, I'm running from Miami to Los Angeles. That was the mindset. The second time, it was a pilgrimage. I thought I'm going to be, I'll be on a pilgrimage from Los Angeles to Miami, but and through that pilgrimage, I want to revisit all my friends, and I want to make more friends,
Yep.
and I want to see what I find along the way. So it had that indefinite, that the lack of precision, lack of planning, that is
Yeah.
typical of a pilgrimage. You just know, okay, I want to get to that point. Let's see what happens along the way, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but sometimes I ask you that question on how it started with how it, and I really like your answer. Um, because many times we, or maybe every time, we imagine that the run will be, or that the challenge will be in a certain way, and it's completely different, right? So,
Well,
when
that's yeah.
reality hits us, like a ton of bricks, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
really it's
Really
really
quick.
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you mentioned that you were always fighting. You had your own demons to fight, but while you were there, while during the thing, did you have to deal with the same problems, or
Um,
or did the run overwhelm you enough that you couldn't even pay attention to your own problems? You had to be in the moment.
Sometimes I think in the world, the domesticated world, we're allowed way too much time to think. And I think in the world I was living when I was running, my mind and the way that it works as far as my thoughts
Mhm.
worked really well with the way things were coming towards me. It was almost like I could, equate it to an organic process. It felt like something that felt natural, like I was meant to be that way. Like, I can equate it to, like, say, primitive man, hunter gatherer.
Mhm.
You're always busy in your mind trying to survive. And
Mhm.
to me, that's what it was like. It was like every day was a new challenge. And every day I moved on. I never stayed in a place where things began to get stale or people got to know me too well. Or
Mhm.
and strangely enough, that was rather comfortable. Initially, though, coming from where I was, it
Mhm.
was very uncomfortable. But over time, it became like people say to me, I can't imagine running across the country, or I can't imagine being in the desert or
Mhm.
running there. And I just, they can't imagine it because they don't try it. And I think that sometimes if people just get away from that fear or overcome that
Mhm.
initial thought that I can't, to be amazed at what they can do.
Yeah, but I believe people that never did something like this, they make a mistake in calculation. They think that we ran, like in my case, 2,800 miles.
Yep.
I never ran 2,800 miles. I only ran one day.
Yep.
Like running half of it and walking the rest of it.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
only ran one day, and then the next day I did it again, and then
Yep.
the next day you did it again.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
never fits in our mind, the entire thing, because we don't have any evolutionary preparation to think of running 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
It's not an impossible accomplishment. It's an impossible thought. There is no way
Yes.
to think that. You can only think of, okay, today I will go in that direction, and I will go as far as I can. that is a simple thing that you can understand, you know. So I even thought that when I made my initial plan, it was to run for 100 days. And so that would be about 27. The original plan was about 27 miles a day for 100 days, which would be 27 marathons plus a little bit, right?
Yep.
And I thought, oh, I'm going to run 100 marathons, and I was talking to this guy that was uh, uh, giving me some ideas, and he said, no, you can't. You cannot run 100 marathons. And I said, wow, you just don't believe it? No, no, no. He said, no, I believe you. What I'm saying is that you're going to run one marathon, and you have to train for that 99 times. So you need to change the way you are thinking about them. The first 99 are training. The last day is the one.
Yeah.
That's the only one.
Yeah.
And it was exactly that. Because the last day, I didn't have any concern with I'm going to be too tired the next day. I didn't have to conserve energy. I didn't have to save on anything. I could just unleash it. And in fact, the last day I was super fast. I was doing, 7, maybe 8 minute miles. I was consistently really fast.
Yeah.
But until then, I was always concerned with I cannot get hurt today. I cannot get too tired because tomorrow I need to be, again on the road. I cannot run out of food. So there was always this management that didn't exist the last day, right? So the changing in the way people, the error in the way people think is that they think you ran from South Carolina to San Diego. No, you ran one day at a time. Your mind has to digest that, in little chunks.
Yep.
But did you know that in the beginning, already from the beginning? Did you get that, or it hit you later?
It hit me later for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it was the first day I thought that I could run 50 miles and realized I was in an area where the only bridges that I could run over weren't pedestrian crossing bridges and things like that, or traffic. I'm trying to think of the word, like when they were doing work on the highways that I wasn't aware of, things that you had to make up for and figure out. And that was
Sometimes,
kind of,
yeah, sometimes you look at a path on Google and it says, oh yeah, you go this way, you end up over there.
yeah,
But then you end up in a farmer's backyard, there is no way
yeah,
out, and you need to run all the way
yeah,
back.
yeah. We were running illegally over a bridge just to get to another part of the road, and there's these things that you have to do to
I
get to where you need to go.
Yeah, I went through a bunch of times. I went through trespassing through like power plants, and
Yep.
in New Mexico I went through an area that was clearly marked as it was part of this gas power plant. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, if I don't go across, I'll have to go back 36 miles in the desert now.
Oh yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
way I'm going back.
No, I know. I would have done. Yeah. I ran into the same issues in Arizona. It was like I'd gotten kicked off the highway by this one officer that had it. I don't know. He just was an asshole, and that wasn't common all the time. Like some of the officers were great people. I mean, they
Yeah,
were looking out for me, and
yeah, usually,
but
yeah.
this one guy had it. Against he was just in a bad mood or something. But I ended up having to run through the desert pretty much through all these dry areas and just to bypass the highway. And initially it was really sketchy for me, but again, once you finally overcome that, you kind of get it and you move on and you get through it basically.
Yeah,
And
once in New Mexico, I had a it's a highway patrol. A highway patrol guy told me to get out of the highway and take this other road that was outside, but the road would get away from the highway sometimes, and
yep,
it would follow more or less parallel, but sometimes it would go far, like a mile away, and then gradually back towards the highway. So it was a little longer run. and I asked him, look, I'm right here going along the fence. I'm not causing any trouble. He said, no, no, you have to go to the other road. And then I went to the other road, and then the border patrol stopped me.
Oh,
They said,
geez.
no, this is too dangerous. You go back to the highway.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
I
going back and
said,
forth. Yeah.
yeah. I said, all right, this is not
That
going
was
to
an
work.
interesting Arizona and New Mexico and
They are
West
funny.
Texas, where the border patrol and the highway patrol were both.
They are funny, and
Yeah.
sometimes they would come up, and some of them, like especially the local cops, they would show up and say, "Oh, I just came to check if you have water, because you are in the desert, you know that, right?" So yeah, no, I'm fine. Um,
Yeah.
but the I bet I can tell that without even asking you. I bet that the people that you help along the way were fantastic experiences. Like it really changes your perception of how
Hmm.
good people can be, and how they treat you so well.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was more a matter of accepting that help from people. For me, that was hard because I wasn't used to feeling like I needed help. But
Uh-huh.
out there, you find that people feel good about helping you. They want to help you
Yeah.
because you're doing something that's pretty great. In all
Uh-huh.
honesty, and I'm not an extremely proud person, but for me to feel like I was doing something worthwhile for people to help me was
Uh-huh.
another step that I had to actually
Yeah.
overcome.
Did, yes. Did you attach your run to like a cause, or were you
Yep.
raising awareness to something? Tell us more about that.
Well, I like I said in the beginning, I've suffered with a bipolar disorder, mental illness my whole life. So
Mhm.
when I took the run, the friend that was originally supposed to follow me in a vehicle, actually,
Mhm.
that kind of uh, didn't end up following me in the vehicle,
Mhm.
had decided that I should run for the mental illness cause. So I
Mhm.
just kind of took it on and didn't think really that much about it
Uh-huh.
until I started running more and following or talking to more people
Mhm.
and really figuring out how much the cause itself and myself and my own struggles made people feel and open up, and
Mhm.
vulnerability that you spoke about earlier,
Mhm.
and the way I communicated helped other people to be able to communicate. And it was amazing because people I've known for years and years opened up to me that
Mhm.
about things. It was just very humbling.
Um, for someone like me that has no idea what it is, and I don't want to go to Google now and try to
Yeah,
read about what it is to be bipolar,
yeah.
can you give us a description from the inside,
Yep.
from being the person in, how it feels, how does that affect you?
Basically, it's what it is. It's like depression. It's like extreme amounts of depression or extreme amounts of joy. Like I can feel very, very, very good to a manic extent of
Uh-huh.
where, like, let's say I'd spend so much money that I can't pay my bills and do
Mhm.
something silly, or be so depressed that I don't leave my house for a month.
Mhm.
And there were times in my life where it affected me with work. It affected me with wanting to
Mhm.
take my own life, a
Mhm.
lot of different things, and relationships, and et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. Um, it was it was a long time of learning on my own because I didn't grow up in a very wealthy family for any means or had medical insurance. So
Mhm.
I didn't have psychiatrists to help me for that matter as much, or get medication. So I think that's kind of a good thing too, because I figured it out on my own how to make myself feel better.
Mhm.
And doing the things that I do are some of those things that I learned.
Uh-huh. There is a joke that I posted a couple times on Facebook that says that if you die, you don't know that you're dead. It's only difficult to the other people. You know,
Yep.
it's the
Yep.
same if you're stupid. You don't
Yeah.
know that you're. But but now the joke aside, when you have uh, uh, bipolar disorder. Uh, are you aware of it? Like, do you how uh, how aware, or did it take time for you to be aware that that is what's going on with you?
Um, the only times like when I'm by myself, I don't feel like anything's wrong with me because I feel I'm aware of myself and I'm aware of the way that my mind works, I think
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. But when I'm in other with other people, I think in other situations, that's where my mind kind of like I differentiate myself from those people. Not all people, but
Mm-hmm.
certain things. And that was one of the things on the run where I felt most comfortable with. I felt comfortable on the run. Like my mind was working in that context. And when I came back, uh, like I said, I'd gotten depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I didn't fit in into that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what it is now, it's a matter of working those two principles together,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like you said, you're working between those two things,
Uh-huh.
and finding that. I mean, there's a lot of good things in my life. Like I found a girl that I really enjoy and have fun with. That's my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I have a son and I have a home and a dog and all the happy things,
Uh-huh.
and but there'll be times when I'm absolutely unhappy with everything. Even though most would look at my life and say you should be happy,
Yeah.
and you know, and then at the same time sometimes I just want to go and run away for a month. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's just a couple different things that go on in my head right there
Uh-huh.
that kind of give you some idea, I guess.
Man, it's fascinating. I don't remember how we start talking, and I don't want to go roll back the timeline down on Facebook to figure that out. I'll tell you what I do remember. Um, in 2014, we were doing this more or less at the same time, right? We,
Yep.
we, we, we were trying to cross paths, but it
Yep.
didn't work for some reason. Maybe your route was a little bit north of me.
Yep, I
Um,
went up in a little higher up onto not Mayhill. I'm trying to think. Uh, I can't think of the mountain right now that I went
okay.
up, but
But I remember that I gave you very detailed instructions on how to go through New Mexico. Did you use that?
yeah, I remember passing through places that you
Uh-huh.
had.
Uh-huh.
I remember going to this casino and sitting down, and
Did you
they
talk
were
to
like,
those guys?
yeah. They're like, yeah. Milton just came through, a guy named Milton, and I'm like, oh, it's just so cool because I realized that you had just come through and we had just basically crossed paths
Uh-huh.
after traveling these incredible distances,
Yeah.
and I would always think, that when you would give me those directions that
Yeah.
you had just been in those areas that
Yeah.
I was actually traveling through, or you would make a description of
Uh-huh.
somewhere that you had seen and I had seen that right afterwards. It
Uh-huh.
was pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I met with a few other people that did very similar things in person, and
Yep.
others I just keep talking online. I intend to do podcasts with all of them because they are all fascinating. Their
Yeah.
stories or the struggles that they had before. I believe that most of them were dealing with issues that were much more important than my mundane things that I was dealing with. Um, but I always want to ask them what changed. For me, it's very clear the difference between the person that I was before and the person that I was after. I can see that because it's on myself. But what it is about you that became different, if anything?
There's a lot of things. One of the things in particular is that um, I found that primarily whatever anybody ever tells you to believe or think or you see on TV,
Mm-hmm.
find out for yourself. Because by I mean, for me, 99% of the time, it was absolutely different when I actually experienced it firsthand. I remember cops telling me that I get killed in certain places and
Hmm.
going there and meeting the most friendly people I'd ever met before.
Yeah.
Or, just things like that, those kind of fears. And to add to that, there was a million other things as far as overcoming my own personal insecurities, fears, and you know, it hadn't the way I explained it to people. They're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
you ran a long ways," and I go, "The running was the easiest part," because to
Yeah.
me, there was so much more than just running.
Yeah. Yes. Uh, the challenge is mental. It's not physical. Anybody can get out of the anybody that is reasonably healthy can walk out of the door and walk 20 plus miles a day. Anybody can do it. But organizing your lifestyle to do this is a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
Getting away from job and regular life, and believing that you can do this even without money, that is tough. And in fact, the
mhm.
first time that I did it, I left Miami with $100,
Oh
and
wow,
I arrived in Los Angeles with 700. So it
yeah,
doesn't, yeah. So money was not necessary because I was raising money for a charity. Then I gave that $700 to that charity, plus people made donations along the way. But when I was
yep,
doing it the second time, I didn't attach my run to any charity at all. I was looking for something like that to do in the beginning, but I end up not doing. And I
yep,
thought, let me see what is the reaction when I tell people that I just felt like doing this. I just decide to do it just for fun, you know. Or occasionally I would joke, I would imitate uh, Forrest Gump, and I would say I just felt like running, and
yeah,
or but when I told people that I was doing this just for fun, just because I want to, it didn't raise nearly as much sympathy or donations or help. I was much more on my own.
yep,
Uh, which I don't criticize. Okay, I'm not doing this for the veterans. I'm not doing this for the children in Africa. Not doing this for the endangered species or the
yeah, yeah,
whales or whatever. All right,
yeah,
it's just this guy, this crazy dude is doing this.
yeah,
So, but people help a lot less, and in fact, I end up having to spend a bunch of my money to do this the second time.
yep,
But I thought that's okay. I don't want to. It's just what I feel like doing right now.
mhm,
And but in both cases, and I want your opinion on this. In both cases, I would say the first half was very exciting. A little more than that was fine, but the last one third or so was a fucking war.
yeah,
Like especially the second time, the last one third, I suffered a lot
yep,
because my mind was rebelling against it hard.
mhm,
Um, and the the brain starts to create reasons, invent reasons why you should stop. Oh, this hurts. Oh, that doesn't go. Oh, I'm tired. Like it starts creating reasons. And if you are smart, your brain will create very smart excuses to stop.
yeah,
So I like to
yeah,
say that it's easier. This is easier to do if you're stupid. But
yeah,
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 but in fact, I felt really tired, and it was really tough. Especially the last month, the not the last 3 or 4 days, but no, other than that, the last month is horrible. And was it like that for you?
For me, a lot of it was towards the end. I missed my son, I guess, more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
They One of the hard things for me was, well, it was beautiful and hard at the same time, but
Mm-hmm.
they flew my son in to see me in Vicksburg, Mississippi on Christmas,
Uh-huh.
and although that was an amazing thing for people to do,
Mhm.
it was hard for me because I saw him pretty much halfway through this run, and it brought back that attachment I had to him, and that was very emotionally that would draw it on me, I guess, for the rest of that run after that.
Mhm.
That and I know after I came through New Mexico,
Mhm.
I had a point in time where my Achilles tendon, it seemed like, was
Mhm.
bothering the hell out of me. And again, I think that, yeah, I can speak for myself. My mind can make me believe things that are incredibly, they can almost stop me because I
Mhm.
can come up with these things. And then it's a matter of whether I can push through those things. And it's a strong
Mhm.
mind thing. And I think we all need to have that mind, honestly, to do what we do.
Mhm.
And going up. But I think the beginning and the end were the hardest for me. The middle, maybe like if you split it up into 4 quarters,
Mhm.
the first quarter was hard. Second, nah, I started getting into it and getting the rhythm and starting figuring it out.
Mhm.
Third, almost all right, and then the fourth was was hard, especially
Yeah.
coming in. I came into California and I thought it would be this epic thing where I felt this
Mhm.
immense amount of joy,
Uh-huh.
and it was just an ocean. It was
Uh-huh.
everything before that was what it was. It wasn't getting to California. It was a whole journey before that. And that's how I felt,
Uh-huh.
basically.
Yeah. By the way, I really like when the that the podcast is such a free format. Like you can structure that in any way that you want it to structure. So I try to stay away from making it an interview.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
prefer to make it like just two friends talking. So feel free to also bring up anything that you like or
yeah.
ask anything that you want. So just take it in any direction that you like. Um, but before you do that, let me ask you one more thing. That is still about, yes, you mentioned that you divide in four parts. Before um, before starting the first time, I saw some statistics about previous runs across America, and I read an article that now I can't remember who wrote or where it was, but there was an article talking about making an estimate of how many people decide to run across America, comparing to how many of them actually do the first day, do take the first step, and it's something like
Yeah.
100 to 1. Okay, so
Oh
if
wow.
if so
Yeah.
far if so far 250, no, it's less than 300 people actually ran across America. So that means that there are something like 3 million people talk about it. But
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
of those that start, 85% of those that give up during the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay, so to me, 2 weeks was a major milestone. So, and in fact, I celebrated a lot because I thought, okay, starting is half of it. If you because if you don't start, I guarantee you don't finish, right? Then it's a
Yeah.
hundred
Yeah.
percent, right? It's a hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
But if you start and you make it through 2 weeks and you're still moving, okay, well, actually, after 2 weeks is when I started moving, okay.
Yeah.
The first 2 weeks were horrible. Uh, then to me it was a major thing. Then the next milestone was leaving Florida, because the first state line was going to be
Yeah.
important. Because
Mhm.
it has a psychological thing that anybody can run a lot, but running from one state to another, that's when you start feeling like Forrest Gump, right? Oh, you
Yeah.
left the
Yeah.
county and then you left the state. Then the 1/3 point is the next milestone. And to me, 1/3 coincided with New Orleans. New Orleans was exactly 1/3. Then Then Austin was the next one because Austin coincided with exactly halfway.
Yep.
After that
Yep.
point, you are not counting up, you're counting down. Everything changes.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you know that no matter what is the distance ahead of you, you already did more than that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's like you have this physical proof that you can run more than that distance because you
Yeah.
just did,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
And then to me, the next major milestone was going to be entering California. And in fact, that day I felt incredibly happy. I arrived in the evening, and it was a really happy day. But in my imagination, before during the run, and even towards the middle of it, um, I had this impression that I would grow into a emotional state of happiness, let's say this way, that would grow and grow and grow, and at the end you explode. Like it's something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And reality was completely different. What I felt when I got into uh, California, even though I was dealing with all the boredom and oh my god, I'm tired of this. I want to
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
But getting really close, especially after I crossed. There is a place called Palm Springs. That after Palm Springs, you see the first little body of water. You see the first little stream that you cross,
Yep.
and after that stream, you start seeing trees again, and you are gradually entering the urban area east of Los Angeles. So from that point on, instead of this growing emotional thing, what what I felt was a deep sense of peacefulness. There was this feeling of nothing. It was a good nothing.
Yeah.
It was this feeling of no
Yeah. Yeah.
worry. There is no worries. There is no nothing. You
Mhm.
feel that you are getting there and it's going to be over soon. That was
Yeah.
like the last 5 days. Uh, but it's an incredibly deep feeling in which you don't even think much. Your brain kind of tones down, and all you see is you keep going, and your run is easy because you have been on the road for so long that you're
For so
running.
long. Yeah.
Well, you were a runner before. I wasn't. I don't know if
Yeah.
you felt
Yeah.
the same, but to me, I was feeling like an ultra runner the last few days, and so the run was very easy, but my mind was very empty, and there was this peacefulness, and then at the end it was the same, peaceful, quiet, until about the last 2 miles. Then the last 2 miles were incredibly emotional. Then yes, and just every time that I read or if I see the photos, I cry again.
Hmm.
If I see the photos of myself arriving, I cry because I feel again that relief, that feeling of relief. Uh, and if it is possible for you to tell, I would love to hear how was it for you, that progression, that anything
Um,
special.
I remember the first time, like the first 2 weeks for me were probably some of the most hardest part of the run. I know that when I was in South Carolina, I was having issues with being able to get out of South Carolina. Primarily, it was just trying to figure out how to get myself to the next state line.
Uh,
And I remember after 2 weeks, I think you sent me an email saying, you did it. You made it past the time when most people quit. And
uh,
that actually, yeah, that helped me. It gave me that thing of saying, "Oh, I did this. I did this. I made it past that point. I
uh,
can go on." And I remember one of my best running days was 56 miles, and I was from where I was. I made Savannah, Georgia,
mhm.
and I remember running into Savannah, Georgia, and it was about dusk. It was dark, and I remember running across this bridge with no median, cars beeping at me, flipping me off, and I finally made it in, and I've noticed all these people that look really good shape, and like
Uh-huh.
women walking in their yoga pants and everything else. And I'm like, something's going on here. What's
Mhm.
going on? And I guess the rock and roll marathon was happening the next day in Savannah, Georgia. So I just by chance happened to run into Savannah, Georgia the day they were having this.
Uh-huh.
And it was an amazing, that was an amazing day.
Did you budget the marathon?
No, I didn't. I ended up going to well, I went to a couple bars and actually talked to quite a few people and made quite
Uh-huh.
a few friends that
Uh-huh.
actually, so they're still friends to this day.
Uh-huh. So
It
you
was,
so you ran first, you ran along the coast going
yep,
south, and then
yep,
you ran west.
yeah, yeah. And initially I had thought that I was going to follow, I had this idea that I would run this, prefigured route. And it changed so much. I mean,
Mhm.
I ran much more south than I had ever planned to run.
Mhm.
Even when I came into Arizona, New Mexico, and all those areas. But
Mhm.
basically, everywhere that I ran was a different, held different amounts of significance for me. As soon as I got out of urban areas,
Mhm.
and I was figuring out how to run in urban areas at the same time, which is a
Mhm.
different kind of it's a different kind of running in itself. And then figuring out where to sleep in urban areas is a different kind of thinking too, and how to
Mhm.
stay safe. You add all these other principles, which I'm sure you're very well aware of.
Yes.
But then I got into the open areas like West Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona.
Yeah.
And initially, I was really afraid of them. I was afraid of that vastness and that expansion. What about this and what about that? But I became really comfortable there, and I ended
Mhm.
up liking the solitude and the
Mhm.
the openness, especially
Mhm.
West Texas. I thought West Texas was pretty beautiful. Um, and we got the polar vortex that year, so I was in Texas, and I remember getting snow. So I'm like,
Ooh.
thinking to myself, yeah, what the hell is this? I hadn't planned enough to actually. I didn't think, being from Vermont, we have
Right.
lots of snow, but we think in Texas they don't have any snow. So
Yeah.
when I planned on there,
On my first run, there was a similar situation, and I was in the middle of Florida, and it was not snowing there, but there was ice on top of the tent every morning. It was
yep,
that cold, and I think I lost most of the weight that I lost because of cold, not because of running,
yep,
just maintaining body temperature. And when I was going through Mississippi, Alabama, uh, I was not very far from I-10. I was never running on I-10, but I was never far from it. And I-20 was under snow. So it was just another 400, 500 miles. Everything was snowing. Uh,
yep,
so yeah, it was quite cold. I have photos of me like on the beach in Panama City with like the heavy beanie and a fleece covering. You could only see my eyes. I was like a ninja,
yeah,
going going through.
yeah,
Man, that was cold. And in fact, losing weight doing that was so easy and not a
yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Did you meet
yeah.
anybody
There's
else? Did
I
you?
met a lot of people, and
No, no. I
I
mean
one of the
anybody else that
things.
was running across.
Um, no, I meant one person with a backpack who said, I'm sure he could have been a vagrant. I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
he said he had walked across the country. He was walking across the country, and at that point in time, I don't think that he was necessarily, known, or he might have just been a homeless guy that was
Hmm.
doing it. It was
Hmm.
kind of, he had asked me for if I had some food, and I
Hmm.
remembered I gave him some of my food,
Hmm.
and we kind of talked for a couple of minutes, and he went on his way. And but other than that, the only people I met were cyclists that were doing it,
Hmm.
and I met them in California by the time I had actually made it that far. They were starting to take their bike trip to go across the country.
Hmm. Yeah, bikers, I met a bunch of them. But in
Yeah.
Arizona in 2011, I crossed paths with Drew Miller. He was running, his idea was to run from California to West Virginia, I believe. And I even asked him, so if you're going 80% through across America, why don't you go to the other ocean? I don't know if he did. Um,
Yeah.
but we talked a little bit, and he had his mother was driving a minivan. One of, you know, those old minivans, like, you know, the A Squad minivan. So
Yeah.
she had this minivan, and she would pick him from the road and take him to a city, and they would stay in a hotel, and she would drive him back, right?
Yeah.
So we met on the road, not far from Parker, Arizona, about like half a day away from Parker, and we met there on the road, and I was going to camp, and they gave me some water or stuff, and they asked me if I wanted anything. So the next morning, she was going to drive Drew back towards Parker because he was going to start a little bit ahead of where I was camping. So I asked them, hey, can you, if I give you a few dollars, can you bring me a bag of ice? And,
Yep.
because ice was in the desert, you remember, ice is
It's pretty.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I remember they brought me a bag of ice and some food. I think they brought me some beer. I don't remember, but they brought me a bunch of things. And so we met on the road twice, late in the afternoon and then again in the morning. And I continue my way. And since then, I never talked to him. He's not a Facebook guy, so I couldn't find him.
Yeah.
But very cool. And I called the minivan. I named it the Mothership, and they adopt the name from there on. So that was the Mothership.
Yeah.
He was
Nice.
he was running for veterans. He is a military veteran. So he was either
Yep.
raising money for veterans or something like that, and it was pretty cool.
Well, my friend in the panel van was going to follow me, and we had all these plans that he was going to, follow me through, and when he decided he couldn't follow me, it was kind of a bummer for me, and
Hmm.
I was like questioning whether I should do it, and then, I said I'm just going to do it. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. Follow through. So I did it, and obviously made it. But the thing that I'm happy for is that honestly he didn't follow me, because I think that doing it on my own was way better in my opinion than I would have felt if somebody was helping me the whole time. That's
Uh,
just my opinion.
I think that is an advantage in the sense that you're going to meet a lot more people, you're going to make a
Yeah.
lot more connections, and that
Yeah.
that for sure. The only disadvantage is if for one reason or another your goal is to make a lot of miles. So
Yeah.
if you have the goal of doing it fast, then having a vehicle, it's much better because then he can pick you up, take you to a hotel where you
Yeah.
sleep in an actual bed, and you can
Yeah.
take a
Yeah.
shower, drive you back
Yeah.
to the same point, and you continue. So the
Yeah.
comfort is, but it's a huge commitment, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly difficult to find someone that can also take 3 4 months out of their career, right, out of
To come help
their
you.
life to stay on the road, which is boring.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. Every time they meet you, in the beginning it's going to be exciting, but after a while it's only routine.
Yeah.
The poor fucker will have to do the same thing every day, a lot of routine, a
Yeah.
lot of time doing nothing. So if
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
not on Facebook talking about it and promoting or doing whatever else, or watching porn, I don't know, he has to do something,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly difficult. I would say that the mental challenge for one person to do it, to support you all the way through, is maybe more difficult than yours, because at
Yeah.
least you are busy running.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
busy, you know surviving that, but that person is not. Uh, so
Yeah.
for the second run, I tried to get people to help me. Well, for the first, I tried, but I gave up faster because first of all, I couldn't find anybody that believed that I was going to do it.
Yeah.
Because remember, I was not a runner; I was a couch potato. So if
Yeah.
one of your couch potato friends comes over and says, "Hey, I'm going to run across the USA," you may even believe him, but you're going to bet that his odds of finishing are low.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the second time, I thought, okay, now I have a better opportunity because I can say, "Wow, I did this before, so I'm likely to finish." Still couldn't find anybody. And then I thought, oh, well, what if I find someone to do like one third, another person to do another one third, another person uh, couldn't find it. And I thought, what if I find someone to do one day, to help me one day? You can find it, right? So I thought, okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll just tell everybody that I'm going to do this run, and I have a nice network of friends, and I'll ask them to meet me when possible. When nobody meets me, nobody is there to help. I already know how to do that on my own. So on the
Yep.
second time, it worked more or less like that. There were certain parts of the country in which I had people giving me support with their vehicles, like around Los Angeles, around east of Los Angeles, around Phoenix, El Paso, Houston. West of Houston was awesome. I had, for like 5, 6 days in a row, I could actually sleep in a house, and
That's
people would
nice.
bring me
Yeah.
back. And then again, when I was getting very close to Miami. Uh, so it was so instead of thinking of one person helping along the entire time, I thought, what if I have 200 people helping,
Yeah.
doing just little bits, and they are not going to get tired of it. Um, and now that we are talking about all this, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to share this podcast with the other runners. So I bet a lot of them will be, listen to this when they are thinking of doing their own run. You
Yeah.
know,
And I think that's
so
great.
so what advice do you have for them?
When it comes to when you originate that idea and you think to yourself, this is something I want to do, I want to run. One of the first things I remember was posting on the running site, the Runners Across America site on Facebook, and
Uh-huh.
saying,
The
I'm looking.
USA Crossers.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I asked, is there a resource of which I can find information in regards to running across the country? And you were the first one who replied. And you go, you're there right now, and
You just found it.
you were, yeah, yeah. You just found it, yeah. And you were my first resource. And basically, it was like that was the seed of which everything else came from. And I think that the most important thing for me is to follow through, to say, like you also send me another thing, to tell all your friends, do everything you can to make everybody know. So if you allow them to believe it, you have to believe it more and follow through with it. And eventually, the most important thing is when my feet were on the ground in South Carolina, and that van had left me, and I was there by myself, and I knew at that point in time, well, either I start this and I keep moving forward. I mean, they left, so I have to figure out how to do this, and I did, and it was, and the only other thing I can honestly say to anybody who's ready to embark on this kind of adventure is to keep an open mind and to always be available to change, to be open to fear, and to be willing to try and overcome things that you were never usually encountered before in a normal everyday life. I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do. And being from one to the other, from domestication to wild and free and whatever, I think there's so much to be learned beyond the realms of what's expected to be to what you're expected to do every day, I guess,
Yeah.
like pay the bills and this and that. There's
Hmm.
so much more beyond that, and there's so much more beyond ourselves and
Yeah.
uh, beyond our own capabilities. So
In
yeah,
Yes,
go
but
ahead.
in your life, you said, okay, you are back home and you're back in Vermont. So how is your life? What are you doing?
Currently, I mean, I just barely took on a new job, and
Hmm.
I went from being a builder for many years to a cabinet maker now. So
Hmm.
I've got a better job. I newly engaged, have a house now with my son and my stepson, and
Hmm.
basically exploring the fatherhood and being a stepdad and kind of stuff,
Hmm.
having people look up to you and trying to be a good role model for that matter. And, just, and at the same time, trying not to lose who I am in
Hmm.
uh, the whole
Hmm.
picture of everything. You want to I
Hmm.
want to maintain that, sense of wholeness and adventure and belief that there's always more. And I still both I and my fiance run
Hmm.
constantly, and we
Uh-huh.
both have that same sense of adventure, which is something that I haven't been able to find before. So that's a great thing because you know it allows us to do a lot of things that um, still allow us to have fun, and
Hmm.
to get out there and as far as running, I'm just doing ultras. I'm helping a few friends get through their own ultras with pacing and sticking
Uh-huh.
to the 100 mile and the 50-mile ones. And I've got other dreams as far as I want to go across the state of Vermont with my son one day. He likes cycling a lot, so
Uh-huh.
I'd like to run across the state with him.
Once in California in 2009 or 10, I met this family, the Pedwins. I'm going to put a link to their website here. Um, they it was the couple and three little girls, but the girls were like, I don't know, like 6 year old and 4 and 3. They were really little,
Yep.
and they had this bike, this custom bike made for them with 5 seats,
Oh
and the girls were still too little to pedal, so they would, their feet were like this on the air, but they could sit and hold on to their life
yeah,
there,
yeah.
and they were pulling a little trailer with all their camping gear and stuff like that. And so the couple would do most of the effort, and I met them around Big Sur in California, and they were riding from Tennessee on their way to Alaska,
Oh
and
wow.
and after
Yeah.
and they were already a few months on the road, and I kept following them online. After that, they actually made it all the way to Alaska,
Oh.
and they rode back. So they spent like a year and a half or something like that on the
On
road
the road.
with
Yeah.
the daughters,
Yeah.
which I would imagine will impact the life of those kids immensely. Their
Absolutely.
their sense of what is possible is deeply affected by that. Their
Oh yeah.
sense of being out there, their ability to camp out, their ability to to connect to people. I remember they were that little, and everywhere they stopped, they stopped at this. There was this place where people were taking pictures of some what is it called, some animals there on the beach. So people were taking photos. There were a lot of cars parked there, and the girls immediately they got some bucket or something from the trailer, and they sit there and they were singing and talking to people and getting donations. So and they were having a great time, and they would
Yeah,
go and
yeah.
they would sea lions. That's the
Yeah,
animals.
yeah.
So and they would go and they wanted to take photos and all that, and they were super active and happy. So sometimes when people tell me about the fact that they have kids and maybe I'm not doing no much right now because I have the kids, I like to point them to that website. I say, well,
Yeah,
what about
yeah,
that? Or the other
yeah.
one is the Sherman family. The Sherman family is from Brazil, and they spent 10 years sailing around the world with
Oh
their
wow.
kids, with three boys, while they were in school age. Like one was I think 2 or 3 years old, the younger one, and when they finished on those 10 years, the older son stayed in Australia doing because he was in college age already.
Mhm.
But then he was staying at the house of a friend of another family. There are their friends, and the family sent their son to continue the trip with them. So they just swapped kids for a little while and continue going towards Brazil. It's an amazing, amazing story. I'll put their link here too. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I always recommend to people, don't. Of course, you're going to take whatever, style of life you believe fits you, but I always say, look at the life of these people that travel with the kids and they do adventures and and do things
Yep.
that it can be quite
Yeah.
interesting.
There's all sorts of possibilities and things that you can do,
Yeah,
and it's a growth experience. I mean, for the kid, it's an amazing experience too,
yeah.
to be able to actually see all those different perspectives and be made aware of what's really going on,
hmm
for
Yeah,
sure.
if you just go from where you are to Boston, it's already like a big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
It's a
can be
big
a
deal. Yeah.
big deal. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I try to explain to people. I'm like, you could get in your car and you could drive from here in 8 miles down the road, or you could get out and you could run or walk that distance, and you'd be
yeah.
amazed at the way you look at that distance
Mhm,
differently. And for me, that's it's just a matter of getting outside and
mhm,
finding out for yourself.
yeah. Um, Jeremy, in what other ways do you, uh, you said that when you run, when you're out, uh, your own mental state kind of stabilizes, right? It felt, at least you had a continuum that it felt all right.
Yep.
Were you able to regain that after a while by other means? Like does your normal life give you that one way or another?
Um, I learned coping mechanisms on my run as far as my own abilities and my own uh whereas before, just because I didn't fit into a certain situation, it'd make me feel like I was maybe less of a person or wasn't good enough. Now that I've done something that, I mean, it's pretty great. I'm aware that that was up to me, and that no matter what any other person lives like, or any other
Mm-hmm.
perspective, or any other thing, that I, as an individual, have the means within myself to do something like that. So uh, that confidence within itself has helped me, I think, in knowing that, and through life, I've kind of done things like that. I mean, I was a fighter, and boxed for years, and I was a cyclist before I became a runner, and I hiked the Appalachian Trail and big things like that. So I've always been kind of testing that boundary and that means, to see that uncomfortableness,
Mm-hmm.
to see what I was capable of, because maybe I didn't feel like I fit into other situations.
Uh,
But I definitely feel better now.
uh-huh.
Uh,
You mentioned the Appalachian Trail. I'm planning to do something like that. This summer, I'm doing El
yep.
Camino in Spain,
Oh wow.
and
Yeah.
and then I want to do either the Pacific Crest Trail or
Yep.
the Appalachian Trail or the Continental Divide. I'm in that phase
Yeah.
that I still don't know, but I want to do one of them.
Yeah.
Uh, However, I don't want to do it in one shot because it's like a 5 6 month thing, or even if you
Yeah.
do it really fast, it's still a 4 month.
It's still.
It's a four
Yeah.
month hike, and and knowing the experience that I did before, I know that the last month is going to be really fucking hard, and I don't want to. I prefer to look for a different challenge than to deal with that challenge again that I already did twice. So fuck that.
Yeah.
I want to have something that lasts between 1 month and two. Eh,
Yeah.
And like El Camino is 5 weeks, 6 weeks if you go slow. Uh, but I can do it in 4 or 5. So I'm thinking of whichever I do of those 3 trails, I'll divide it in half.
Yep.
So I'll do half 1 year and half another time. So this way I'll stay on the road on the trail for 2 months. Also, I'm getting more involved with some businesses that it's more interesting if I can figure out a way to not stay away so long. So 2 months
Mhm.
sounds like pretty good. But what part of the Appalachian Trail did you do? All of it?
Yep. Yeah, I did it all in around 94, a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
And it was basically uh, it was a little bit like the run, but in other aspects it was different. Less people, less. It was probably my first journey into really kind of being alone for a period of time and uh, getting to know myself
Uh-huh.
more or less.
Yeah. How far are you from the trail in Vermont? From where you live?
I'm Well, the Long Trails here and the Appalachian Trail, they kind of run together for a long period of time in our state specifically. But
Uh-huh.
I'm probably from a trailhead where I am right now, probably 25 minutes.
Wow. Oh,
Yep,
you're
so
very
pretty
close.
close. So it's like,
I'll visit you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we well, yeah, I'll keep you in for a couple of weeks if you want. Yeah, like we've got from it travels pretty much through the whole state of Vermont. So
Uh-huh.
it's a trail that as a kid I grew up on, playing on and going out and
Mhm.
hiking. So, as a young adult, it was just
Uh-huh.
almost a thing I always wanted to do. And here in Vermont, I'm pretty lucky to have those resources available. And
Uh-huh.
as a kid, I was always that kind of kid that our mother would have to fight to get us to come in at night, because we'd be out in the woods
Uh-huh.
chopping down trees and starting fires and doing stuff like that. Whereas my son, it's different. He'd rather be inside, the
Uh,
iPod or whatever. But yeah, it's funny. It's
uh,
but
I remember that when you were about to begin, I told you, yes, tell everybody that you are going to do it. So it puts you on a corner. Now you have to do it because you
yeah,
just said it. In a
yeah,
similar way, I like to occasionally tell some things that I'm going to do. Uh, Also because it creates this commitment, and also occasionally it helps that people know in which direction you are taking a project, for example. So now I'm building this Voyager's Wall. The website is nearly complete. We are uploading the last key features this month. Um, but that's a website that I'll be promoting for the entire summer and then into the next year.
yeah.
But one thing that I want to do uh, was inspired by uh, this guy that what's his name now? Brown, Jeff Brown. He ran across America recently, and he did that barefoot.
Oh yeah,
Jake,
yeah.
yeah, Jake Brown.
Jake Brown. Yeah,
Yeah, super cool guy, super interesting,
yeah,
and but he did something that really put an idea in my mind. When I was beginning my second run, he was, I think he was living somewhere in New York, in upstate New York, and he
yeah,
was calling the hotels, the restaurants, he was calling people along the way and convincing them to give me a hotel stay for free, to give me dinners for free. Like he was calling companies. And he
yeah,
had all this method that, he promoted them online and then in exchange they gave me things, and he made
Yep.
the first 1/3 of my trip a lot easier. He helped me all the way across New Mexico, California, and New Mexico, and a little bit of Arizona, and
Yep.
then he had to travel and do other things. So from that point on, he didn't have time. But
Yeah.
he helped me that bunch, and I thought, wow, this is such an amazing idea. So I decided that as I'm building a network of travelers and adventurers and and athletes and crazies, like us. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's a network that I can use to give support to our athletes like that. So
Absolutely.
imagine a we'll have to have some criteria to who we sponsor in that fashion, right? But let's say that is this guy in Vermont, Jeremy, and he says that he is going to, to run across America, and then we talk to him and we believe, well, you know what, this guy seems to be, he seems to be serious about it and committed, and so we become one of the sponsors, and
Yeah.
then I will have, because we will need to have some people working on the website full time, like maintaining things and supporting people, doing like customer service and things like that. So I will have them calling the hotels and restaurants, and and telling about the cause that he's supporting, telling about the situation, calling
Yep.
the fire department, asking if they can host the guy, you know
Yeah.
and this way we can be a little bit ahead of that runner, creating these opportunities, right? To for other people, other companies to give some support, and we can connect to people that can host, people that can go and run along, some things like that. So in a way, yeah, we are not giving a single dollar to that person, but we can be giving thousands of dollars worth of support, hotels, meals, all that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
at the same time, we're helping those companies promote their names through
Hmm.
through that run, and and connecting all that social networking effort from from both ends. Um, so this is an idea that has been on my mind for about a year, from the time that I began building Voyager's World, and I want to I'll tell this here because people will be listening to that on
Yeah.
USA Crossers and other runners that did this before and runners that will do it in the future. Uh, may be able to help us with ideas, with with suggestions, and get involved with our project, at some point. So everybody that is on the podcast, I ask them go there and sign up and create a profile so I can link everything. But at in one moment in the future, we'll be able to do that. Sponsor a runner, and my idea is to do that for runners, for people running, doing that in bicycle, like with their families, like the Peduans did, and people doing things that are unusual. We can. I don't think we can do it for bicycle, uh, for two reasons. Not that we cannot, we can, but for bicycles, first of all, there are many of them. But second,
Yeah.
that is a very good network for them, which is the
Oh,
Warm
there is. Yeah.
Showers.
Yeah.
Warm
Yeah.
Showers covers them very well. But the
Yeah.
runners, nobody covers that. Like that
Yeah.
is not a lot for.
Yeah.
Uh, they need to invent the network. So Jake Brown inspired me to do that, and I want you to be aware of it, and I want the other runners to be aware of it. That this resource is not there yet, but I'm building Voyager's World to get to that point in which I can have that resource for other runners. And
That's a great idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
Jake helped me on my run too.
he
So
did.
Yeah, yeah. Jake
I
actually ran with me into California at the end of my run.
I think I told him about you. I'm
Yeah,
not
you did. Yep.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
think I
did.
did. I did. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Because
had that
that's how he got a
impression.
hold of me. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jake's a good guy. Yep.
Yeah. No. What he was doing was so mind blowing for for how unusual it was and selfless, and then later I was here in Europe and ultra busy with other things, and I thought, oh shit, now he's on the road and not helping, you know.
Yep.
But I didn't feel that bad because I thought, okay, I cannot help him, but I'll be able to help someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
build what I'm doing this, I cannot pay him back, but I can pay forward. And
Yep.
that's just as good. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's so good to talk to you, man.
Yeah,
So
you too.
good.
It was a good
Yeah.
having the conversation with you. It brought back a lot of memories. It's definitely good to talk
Yes.
to you.
Did you write any book or did you blog more? Do you have a blog about this, or it was just Facebook?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Facebook was the only thing, and that wasn't even intentionally. Just,
Uh,
I mean, it all happened very much out of chance. And
uh,
like I'd said earlier in our conversation, typically I'm the type of person that likes to not be in the spotlight.
uh,
So for me to become that for people to be that aware of me,
uh,
it was the learning experience, and it also allowed to, I think, people seeing the vulnerability in the writing
yeah.
that I did do gave people a different perspective of what it was to be out there. So, but
It definitely left an impression on me because I always remember that. I thought, wow, he was being so candid about his feelings and and the how challenging it was, and I remember that you mentioned uh, at some point I couldn't remember what was the issue exactly, and I don't like to go back on Facebook and
yeah,
investigate
yeah,
my timeline. But so I
yeah.
didn't, but I remember that okay, it was either depression or some other issue,
Yep.
and you kind of disappear for about a year. You didn't post much, and I thought, oh, maybe
No,
he's dealing with that now.
yeah,
But it was very, very good to reconnect, and I'm very
yeah.
happy to see you, you know, enjoying it better now, enjoying it more,
Yep.
and we never met. We tried, but we never met in person
Yeah,
yet. But that is a situation that we will fix in the future.
we will. I
I,
hope so.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
I hope
definitely
so.
going to
Especially
meet you.
when,
Yeah, and
yeah,
perhaps we'll have a second conversation like this, but around the fire.
that would be great. Yeah, that would be amazing.
All right, man. If I didn't forget anything else, that's it. Thank you so much. Uh,
Problem.
very very happy to share your message with our viewers. And until next time, thank you.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Voyager's World. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.